Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It is 6 o'clock p.m.
I don't know, it's me. But it was.
on Tuesday, August the 11th, 2026. I'd like to call the meeting of the Peoria City Council to order. I'd also like to welcome everyone here in our historic council chambers, as well as our listening audience watching on cable channel 22 on the City of Peoria YouTube channel. You open the mics. Open mics. Madam Clerk, the council mics are open. Please call the roll.
Mayor Ali,
Present.
Councilmember Allen,
Present.
Councilmember Carmona,
Here.
Councilmember Sear, Councilmember Gordon Young,
Present.
Councilmember Jackson,
Here.
Councilmember Kelly,
Here.
Councilmember Euler,
Here.
Councilmember Riggenbach,
Here.
Councilmember Velpula,
Present.
and Councilmember Vespa.
Here.
You have a quorum present, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Everyone, please join me and stand for a moment of silent prayer or silent reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk,
We have one proclamation.
our proclamation recognizes National Emergency Management Awareness Month, and we have Jason Marks, Peoria City County Health Department Director of Emergency Management. Hello, Mr. Marks. The proclamation reads, whereas the protection of life, property, and the environment is a fundamental responsibility shared by government, businesses, nonprofit organizations, and all community members of the city of Peoria. And whereas emergency managers work year-round to prevent, protect against, mitigate, prepare for, respond to, and recover from natural disasters, technological incidents, public health emergencies, and other hazards. Whereas emergency managers coordinate with law enforcement, fire departments, emergency medical services, public health agencies, schools, hospitals, volunteer organizations, private sector partners, and neighboring jurisdictions to ensure a unified and effective response to emergencies. And whereas emergency management programs strengthen community resilience through hazard planning, training, exercises, public education, warning systems, continuity of operations, and recovery coordination. Whereas our community is vulnerable to emergencies, such as a severe thunderstorm, tornadoes, of course you heard the sirens the other night, flooding, winter storms, hazardous materials incidents, utility disruptions, and other events that may threaten public safety and community well-being. And whereas community members are encouraged to prepare for emergencies by developing family communication plans, assembling emergency supply kits, staying informed through official alerts, and supporting neighbors who may need additional assistance. Now therefore I, Rita Ali, Mayor of the City of Peoria, Illinois, do hereby recognize the month of August as National Emergency Management Awareness Month in Peoria, Illinois.
I just want to thank the mayor for the proclamation, the city council. If you paid attention, I mean, this month we're going to make people aware of emergency management. Our role is to really tell what we as an emergency management agency and other government services are, how we're helping to protect the community during or prior to disasters. We'll be back in September for National Preparedness Month, where we'll focus on individuals. But this month, we want to really focus on what we can do to assist the community and what we are doing. So we appreciate the proclamation. So
Thank you for your leadership in this
Thank you.
effort. Thank you. have an announcement that a public meeting of the City of Peoria regarding the proposed First Amendment to the Northwoods Mall Tax Increment Financing, or TIF, is to be held at 6:00 p.m. on Wednesday, August 19th, 2026, at Holy Family School, located at 2329 West Reservoir Boulevard, Peoria, in Peoria. The purpose of the public meeting is to enable the city to advise the public, taxing districts having real property in the redevelopment project area, taxpayers who own property in the redevelopment project area, and residents of the area as to the city's possible intent to prepare the First Amendment to the Northwoods Mall TIF District Redevelopment Plan project and redevelopment project area, and to receive public comment. So again, that date is 6:00 p.m. on Wednesday, August the 19th at Holy Family School for the proposed amendment to the Northwoods Mall TIF District. Madam Clerk?
We are at the approval of the minutes.
Councilmember Riggenbach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to approve the minutes of the joint city council and town board meeting held July 28th, 2026 as printed.
Seconded by Councilmember Velpula. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We have two town items. The first one, 26-202, is the Town of the City of Peoria Financial Statements Annual Audit and Supplementary Information for year ended March 31st, 2026, with request to receive and file.
Councilmember Gordon Young?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to approve item 26-202.
Seconded by Trustee Allen. Any comments or questions? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
The second town item is 26-203, a request from the town officials to approve the July 2026 actual expenditures and to approve the August 2026 anticipated expenditures for the town of the City of Peoria.
Trustee Gordon Young?
Thank you. I move to approve item 26-203.
Seconded by Trustee Allen. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We are at the city portion of the agenda under public hearings. 26-204 is a public hearing for the proposed Peoria West Main Tax Increment Financing District, and we need a motion to open the hearing, please.
Can I get a motion to open the public hearing? Moved by Councilmember Euler, seconded by Councilmember Kelly. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manager, can you?
Sorry, Madam Mayor.
Please, thank you.
Yes, so this is the public hearing for the West Main TIF. We have held a public meeting, as we just mentioned, that we'll be doing for the First Amendment to the Northwoods Mall TIF. And this is the second to the last step in this process. This is the public hearing where we'll hear from members of the public about the TIF, and then it'll come back for council's adoption after that. And we do have Herb Klein, who is with us as well from Klein and Klein, that has been the Economic Development Group that has been working on the TIF for us as well. So if there are any questions, we can answer those as well.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you for being here. Is there anyone here tonight that would like to speak to the public hearing for the proposed Peoria West Main Tax Increment Financing District? Come forth, please give us your name.
Hello, my name is Per Ellingson. Is my time starting now? I see a clock ticking. I guess that's a yes. Okay. Thanks for the opportunity to make a public comment. I probably would have tried to make a comment on a TIF before, but this one actually, I got the heads up on it because I live in the area. TIFs are complicated. I think everybody knows that. So in the interest of trying to be a little more clear, I'm going to read from the Strong Towns article about that. If anybody's heard of Strong Towns, we brought Chuck Marone here several years ago. Great content on how to make cities financially strong and sustainable. So I'll just start kind of in the middle of this. Every time a city approves a TIF, they have to ask themselves a series of difficult to answer questions. Will the TIF perform well, creating a flourishing area with tax-paying businesses and residents where one would not have otherwise existed? Or will it perform poorly, creating a huge loss of tax revenue? As strong towns, this uncertainty concerns us. The intention behind a TIF is not always bad, of course, but here's a list of questions you can ask yourself to discover if TIF is best for your city's or town's financial health. First of all, have you considered incremental development? Incremental development means making small bets on many small projects over a broad area over a long period of time. Because local governments don't have the ability to guarantee the future success of a project, they should consider growing incrementally. Instead of constructing a rail line, you start with a shuttle bus. Instead of building an apartment complex, you start with a duplex. The same philosophy applies to TIF districts, which are often used to jumpstart large-scale redevelopment projects and justified on the basis that no such megaproject would have been viable without TIF. But should the city first consider a smaller investment to develop the area? Could they invest in helping the existing local grocery store meet its needs? Could they practice economic gardening and seek to help hardworking entrepreneurial residents of the area start and grow companies? Could they make sidewalk and traffic calming improvements that improve street safety and make a business district more walkable and lively? What would it take to gradually bring up the value of existing properties instead of doing full-scale redevelopment? We know these alternative solutions aren't as shiny and new as the proposed TIF-funded megaproject. However, they are small bets. Local governments can preserve their resilience if they don't succeed. Is the public losing anything? Before local government can approve a project for TIF, they must ensure the project passes the but-for test. But for the TIF subsidy, the development wouldn't have happened. If that's true, then the TIF is jumpstarting development, but the public isn't losing anything because the money to pay off the initial TIF subsidy is coming from property taxes that otherwise wouldn't have been collected at all. The problem, however, is that it's challenging to actually assess that but-for test in practice, meaning lots of projects that get TIF money probably don't pass it. That means, as in they don't end up producing the tax revenue. That means TIF can end up starving the local government's general fund, which pays for most city services, because the property taxes are going to the TIF district instead. Before approving projects for TIF, it's essential that local governments, to the best of their ability, ensure that the TIF money is going to truly necessary value-creating projects that can't happen any other way, and not to subsidize development that could have been achieved by another means. And it links to other resources. There's obviously tons of studies and stuff like that, so which I would not be surprised if any of you are at least at different degrees of familiar with. So TIFs are just, there's not like, the question, of course, is more complicated than like pro-TIF or anti-TIF. You just got to be really careful with it. If it were on the edge of town in a more horizontal growth development rather than reinvesting in our urban core, it would have been an easier no from me. And if it's how it's defined as supporting projects that are supporting more like car infrastructure as opposed to urban walkable infrastructure in our dense urban core. If it's supporting those kinds of projects, I would be much stronger against it. That being said, if it's done carefully with careful oversight and defined really clearly and connected to strong vision and policy goals, then I think it can be done well. So thanks for your time.
You're welcome. Madam Clerk, did you get his name?
No. Can we have him state his name one more time, please, sir?
Yes, my name is Per Ellingson Was there another?
Could you spell your last name for us for the
Yes,
record?
absolutely. Sorry. Ellingson.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else here tonight that would like to speak to the public hearing for the proposed Peoria West Main Street TIF? Please provide your name.
Hi. I own property right there off of Main on Frank. So my question is the council is how is this going to benefit the neighborhood? We always hear about these developments and these large development corporations coming in and the city provides incomes. The malls that I used to previously shop, the Lowe's that I don't go to any longer because the taxes are higher. A lot of these things have, for me, pushed me to drive my business to East Peoria. So being someone who owns property in that proposed area in the TIF zone, I want to know how that is going to be, how that money will be used to improve those neighborhoods and what exactly is the council proposing to do. So that's more of a question. I know you
Okay.
guys sent out the emails and you guys sent out the letters saying this is something that you guys are working on, but the community or myself, we'd like to know exactly how this TIF development plan is going to work.
Sure, that's fair. Mr. Manager, you want to speak to that?
Certainly, I think that Mr. Wilmington, our Assistant City Manager, is right behind you, and she'd be happy to answer your questions. This is a public hearing for public comment, but she can certainly answer your questions directly, so, in that response.
Can you kind of give a general,
Sir,
more
yeah,
response?
TIF districts are designed to support redevelopment within the specific geographic area that we're talking about. So in this instance, we're talking about West Main Street. It will be designed to focus the efforts on redeveloping within West Main. And it's, as the first commenter mentioned, about incremental growth, that is entirely how we have worked towards developing our TIF districts is through incremental growth in a number of different areas throughout the city, and so that will continue. We don't, with a couple of exceptions, we have not really issued a lot of bonds for TIFs and then gone out and done development work. We usually do it as we pay as we go, and that's part of the process that we utilize. So we're conservative in our approach that we do that, but we also think that we've been very successful in seeing that the TIF districts that we have created have actually paid off and are working, so.
Okay. And again, if there's more detail, if your property is located within the TIF, that's what I'm understanding, that your property is within the TIF. So you want to know how your property might be affected by that TIF. And so for more detailed, specific information, Assistant Manager Kimberly Richardson is right behind you. Okay, she'll be happy to talk to you. Is there anyone else tonight who would like to speak regarding the proposed Peoria West Main TIF district? Yes, please provide your name. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Howard. I did submit a card, but I guess I'm just coming up now. So I serve on the Board of Education. I'm a new member with Peoria Public Schools, and I just had a few comments. To be clear, I'm not asking anyone to vote no. I'm not trying to stop the TIF train. But I do want to hopefully have more of a dialogue begin and have more of a dialogue about the impacts of our TIFs on our taxing bodies, including our public school district. And I'd like to use the East Growth Village cell as an example. So that's been really successful. There's been actually really beautiful projects that have been done there, and I fully support that. But just going into the history around when that happened, when it was first established in 2011, at the time, Peoria Public Schools was pretty nervous about it because we already had a bunch of TIFs at the same time. They had calculated that they were going to lose some $20 million over the life of this TIF with state aid factored in. They figured at the time they were going to lose at least some 6 to 7 million over the life of this single TIF. So they asked for 20% of a revenue sharing agreement. And the city came back with an agreement that I believe was 10%, and that's after 500,000 was accrued in the TIF account. Speaking of revenue sharing, I was really happy to see that I think it was 61,000 that we're thinking of giving to maybe Woodruff Technical. Is that right, Councilman Riggenbach? Yeah, so that's great. I'm really happy to see the projects that have been done. Like, that is such important work. But just going back to kind of contextualizing the sort of money aspect of this, I am not a municipal finance professional. I will not purport to crunch any numbers or give anything that hasn't been done by a professional. So I'm not going into that territory. I'm just reporting on what I've read in Joint Review Board reports or in Journal Star reporting in the archives. So at the time that this TIF was being proposed, around 2011, the school district they felt that they were losing, I think, around $1 million per year in tax revenue because of the TIFs already that were layered on the taxing body at the time. And then, and I was trying to find some hard numbers, maybe something to illustrate a more broader impact. And in 2016, it was reported that Peoria Public Schools calculated that they'd had a $28 million loss in tax revenue due to TIFs between the years 2000 and 2016. So what I'm really bringing here to the table is maybe we could start talking about and thinking about really how these are impacting our local school district. Because also what's happening is cities around us, when they establish a TIF, they do a carve out or they do some kind of some other revenue sharing agreement with their home school district because they really, really don't want to take from them. They want to take care of their local school district. So really, I just want to put this out there that in case anyone hadn't considered like actually how this is adding up, I think it is a really important conversation to have and that I'd love to continue to have because we know that our kids are the future. They are actually a worthwhile investment. And I'll just end with what School Board President Gary Allen said 25 years ago about these TIFs is that we should be building in our home school district as a part of them, as a consideration in every TIF agreement. Treat them as if they're infrastructure, because really they are. They're an investment into our future and our economy and all of those things. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. And I will tell you that the city manager and I have discussed sitting down to meet with you to provide more clarification and information and have that dialogue that you talked about. And I think that meeting was to include the city manager and also Director Craddy, our CFO. And so I think we should have that meeting, Mr. Manager, sooner than later. Sure. And then perhaps we could expand that to include more of the Board of Education members. So we'll be reaching out to you very soon. Welcome. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak to this public hearing? Please provide your name.
I've been here since I was 3 years old. I'm 67 now. I'm not against fixing Main Street or whatever, but if you can't fix the spots that you're already working on, how are you gonna start fixing Main Street? You got older people running into barricades everywhere you go in Peoria. And it's like, You can't just take it and put somebody on there and fix it in 3 or 4 days, 2 days. Why you got to let it stay, messed up? You messed up Adams Street, you messed up Jefferson. I've been here all my life. I ain't never been lost. Why do you have to make it 2 ways, confuse everybody? And then you got signs up. When you get to the sign, it's barricade. They don't say 3 or 4 blocks back, give you a warning. You got to turn and go over here and go back down the street. Things so high, you wasting gas. You can't go over one bridge, MacArthur Bridge, I call it back in the old days. You can't go over that. You got another bridge you got over here. You can't go nowhere straight. It's just like, you got to change your lifestyle. So I'm not against fixing the streets, but what I'm against, finish what you're doing and then do something else. It just makes sense. Taxes. Yeah, cool. But if you start something, finish. It's like a contractor coming to your house and fixing something and don't finish it, and you pay them. We pay taxes. Let's finish it then. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else?
Hi,
Hi.
my name's Katie Eckert, Eckert. I'll be quick. I'm also torn on the TIFs. I live in the Moss Bradley neighborhood. I would love to see some development and enhancement of West Main Street. What I would like to not see is more surface lot parking. There is already too much of that, I think. 5/1s, not really into that idea either. And then just anything else that would lead to gentrification of the neighborhood or pushing out the very rich and diverse community of neighbors that I have there. I love where I live. I love it as it is and would love for it to get better. But would love to see it be in, again, an incremental way or a way in which the vibrancy is preserved while what is offered there is enhanced in a way that lets people stay where they are if that's where they want to be. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else? Can I get a motion to close the public hearing? Moved by Councilmember Kelly, seconded by Councilmember Riggenbach. Oh, you have a comment, Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. I understand you want to get out of here soon, but I have a few things to say.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Manager, looking at the map, and we are including a whole lot of territory. I can see the medical school all being included, but we've got property 2 blocks away from Main Street downtown. We've got one strip that is bounded by North Street and Flora that's 3 blocks away from Main Street, or goes 3 blocks. My thought when this first came up was that we would be taking half a block off Main Street either way and really concentrate. But we've got above the bluff, we've got mostly residential areas here. What is the plan? What's the idea for this, what I would consider to be just a pretty big district that is diverse in its land use?
So, Councilman, the TIF starts at Monroe Street, covers the stretch of Main that runs up Perry and Glendale, goes up the hill. It encompasses a portion of the UEComp campus as well as Carl's footprint. It does exclude several properties that are Carl's in the footprint. We did go up North Street, up to Columbia Terrace, because there are commercial properties along that stretch of North Street, almost entirely commercial properties along that stretch of North Street. We did come down Flora in drawing the map, and then tried to keep it between Wyndham and Russell, which is basically one block on both sides of Main Street, north and south, until we reached the western portion of University Street, or the eastern portion of University Street, excuse me, and it encompasses Campus Town and the businesses along that stretch. So it abuts the Bradley University campus as well. So the intent was to try and capture as much of the commercial property, because there is a mix of commercial and residential in this area, as well as there are several, and the reason that we had to have the public meeting earlier this year is because we did have some residential properties that were incorporated into the TIF district. So we had to have that public meeting, which we'll have to do as we talk about the amendment to the along Sterling Avenue to the Northwoods Mall TIF. So looking at this, we really looked at it and said that stretch on North Street could utilize the incentives that are provided in a TIF district, and that's why we looked at that. But we do primarily stay along the Main Street corridor here with us.
Well, thank you, Mr. Manager. I'm very much in favor of redoing or really revitalizing Main Street, especially all of Main Street, really. But I just think if I fix up my house on Flora, that increment goes into the TIF, and it really doesn't seem to me that it is part of the mission of this TIF to do that, or are we just trying to grab as much land as we can and hope something will happen?
No, I think that certainly, like we've seen in the East Village, if there are residential properties that are paying into the TIF, there are programs that we can set up that the money can go back to the property owners, and that we can utilize that in a way that makes sense for those residential properties within the TIF. It is a small number of properties in total that are residential. Almost the greater preponderance of the properties in this TIF are commercial properties.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. You had raised your hand to make a comment, not to make a motion. Right, a question and a comment.
I'd rather not make the motion, but I'll vote for it.
Yes, okay. So Councilman Regenbach, you had seconded that. Do you want to make the motion to close the public hearing?
Yeah, can
Okay.
I make a comment, or is it inappropriate?
And let me
right
get
now?
a second first to close the public hearing. Seconded by Councilmember Euler. Councilman Regenbach,
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
you're welcome.
In response to the comments about the size of the TIF, I think it's important to note that sometimes our economic development team and consultants offer some really powerful suggestions. As Ms. Howard, thank you for the shout out for the East Village Grow Cell TIF. That's something I'm particularly proud of, as my colleagues know. But as a layman, I would have thought, we'll make Knoxville the dividing line because it's between Prospect and Knoxville. But our economic development experts said, well, we should include the west side of Knoxville because that's also part of that commercial corridor. And that's where some of the most significant growth has actually come. So it's always important, I think, that we avail ourselves of the most opportunity when we're establishing this, because as we see with the Northwoods Mall TIF, we're already looking to expand it to include the old Kroger site. So just because the geography is there doesn't mean there's going to be a project there. And the thing I like about this, similar to the East Village TIF, is that it's not project driven. So there's not some big grocery store driving it all that's going to suck up all the TIF, but it's going to avail itself to all the people with a vision for that neighborhood. So I promised I wasn't going to talk too much
It's
tonight.
okay.
So that's all I have. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any discussion on the motion to close the public hearing? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
We are on to the consent agenda. 26-205 is a communication with a request to approve the low bid and award a contract to Microsurfacing Contractors, LLC for the slurry seal contract 2026 in the amount of $411,431.82, with an additional authorization of $38,568.18 for contingencies, for a total amount of $450,000. 26-206 is a communication with request to approve the low bid of R.A. Cullinan and Son, a division of UCM Inc., and award a contract for the Gale Avenue and Greenleaf Street resurfacing project in an amount not to exceed $600,000. 26-207 is a communication with request to approve the low bid of J.C. Dillon, Inc., and award a contract for the concrete patching 2026 project in the amount of $596,246.75, with an additional authorization of $59,623.25 for contingencies, for a total amount of $655,870. 26-208 is a communication with a request to approve a resolution for proposed match funding for the Highway Safety Improvement Program for the Forest Hill Avenue and Sterling Avenue intersection project. The federal funding requested will be $833,238.90, with a local match for construction of no less than $92,582.10. 26-209 is a communication with a request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance to amend existing special use ordinance number 13392 as amended in a Class C2 large-scale commercial district for a shopping center to allow the construction of 4 apartment buildings with 84 total units for the property located at the intersection of West American Prairie Drive and North Route 91, commonly known as the Shops at Grand Prairie. And 26-210 is a communication from the city manager, excuse me, and Director of Community Development with a request to adopt an ordinance approving an amended and restated redevelopment agreement with Peoria Opportunities Foundation and MacArthur Senior Flats to be located in the South Village TIF District. And on your desk, there are 2 handouts of an updated ordinance and an updated Schedule A. And that concludes our consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. Are there any items to remove from the consent agenda? Can I get a motion to approve consent agenda? Moved by Councilmember Gordon Young, seconded by Councilmember Euler. Councilmember Jackson, you had an item?
Yes, I was going to ask if we could defer. I'd like to remove, I think it's item number 26-2012. I'm sorry, 26-212. I'd like to meet with
26 what?
the MacArthur Flats, which is 26-212, if I'm not mistaken.
It's 210,
sorry.
26-210.
210.
Glasses on.
Okay, can
All
we
right,
get that
sorry
motion
about
to
that.
exclude Councilmember Gordon Young, Councilmember Euler, to exclude that item? Okay, so the motion is to approve all the consent items except for 26-10. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
26-210 is a communication from the city manager and director of community development with a request to adopt an ordinance approving an amended and restated redevelopment agreement with Peoria Opportunities Foundation and MacArthur Senior Flats, LLC, to be located in the South Village TIF District.
Councilmember Jackson?
Madam Mayor, I would just like a 2-week deferral. I would like an opportunity to meet with the folks involved with this to get some clarification and a couple of questions answered, if I could, please.
Okay. Seconded by Councilmember Kelly. Any other questions? Defer for 2 weeks.
Yes,
Next
please.
council meeting. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes with 1 nay and 1, is that right? That's what you meant. Okay, and 1 abstention. Okay. The nay is Euler, the abstention is Riggenbach. Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
So,
Madam Clerk?
We're on to regular business. 26-211 is a communication from the city manager and chief of police with a request for the following. A, approve a sole source purchase of 2 Ford Explorer Interceptors from a no-bid procurement source, Morrow Brothers Ford, on an Illinois government contract in the amount of approximately $91,576, which would be $45,788 each. And this item requires 2/3 vote of council members voting, no less than 6 votes. And then item B is to approve the purchase of parts and labor estimated at $40,000 to have the vehicles equipped with all the necessary equipment. And if we could have separate votes on each, please.
Thank you. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have 2 vehicles we needed to replace. We do have our police chief here at the podium, and I'll be happy to turn the floor over to him.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. On June 7th, we had 2 marked squad cars responding to a disturbance call downtown. Those vehicles were involved in an accident, and the resulting damage was one of the vehicles, 86% of the value of the vehicle. The other was 76% of the value of the vehicle. Our fleet services, anything over 60% of the value, they recommend replacing that vehicle. So that is the request for tonight.
Okay. Any questions for the chief, Councilmember Euler?
That was on the last item.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Any questions for the chief? Please cast your, oh, no, I need a motion moved by Councilmember Euler, seconded by Councilmember Carmona to approve item A. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Councilmember Allen?
I move to approve item B, please.
Okay, seconded by Councilmember Carmona. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
26-212 is a communication from the city manager and community development director with a request to concur with recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance rezoning property from a Class R4 single-family residential district to a Class CN neighborhood commercial district, and to approve a special use for apartments with waivers for the property located at 2702 West Krause Avenue.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to turn it over to our Community Development Director, Joe Doolin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. The item in front of you is a special use request and a rezoning for a property down in Krause. And I'm going to kind of walk through a couple different things of how we got here with this project and some information specifically at the project. I think it's important to highlight, this project is being located in 61605, and it's not being something we're doing in a bubble. We've made a conscious effort over the last 5 years to implement specific programs and projects in that area. So I just want to take some time to highlight those to show that this is part of an overall revitalization strategy and a planning effort of work that we've done over the last 5 years in that area. The city of Peoria over the last 5 years has invested about $1.5 million in Treewind, Logan, and MLK parks. We've spent about $8 million tearing down abandoned, blighted properties in that area, including the Harrison School where this site is going on. We built a new fire station on Western. The Public Works Department has put over $25 million in CSO upgrades, including sidewalks, road improvement, and curbs. In partnership with the state, we spent about $12 million upgrading MacArthur and are in that process now. In partnership with the state and the EPA, we spent over $1 million cleaning up a brownfield located at 3500 block of Southwest Adams. With the help of Congressman Bustos and Congressman Sorensen, we got an earmark that improved sidewalks to about $2.1 million in 61605. And that's just the public investment we've made with our partners. And I think the other projects that we've seen down there, Churchview Gardens opened last few months ago and started leasing over the last few weeks, is about a $14 million private investment with 47 affordable housing units in 61605. Great news, Habitat for Humanity is in the process of wrapping up their first 3 builds on the old McKinley School. When they're said and done, they'll have about 12 to 15 brand new houses for owner-occupied families down there. They actually are having an opening ceremony on the August 28th, and then the families will move in about a week after that. And then earlier on the agenda item that got deferred, but they're in the process of going to closing in the next month or so, MacArthur Flats, which will be a 48 apartment seat for senior affordable housing on MacArthur. I just say all that to illustrate that there's been substantial effort by city staff with our partners at the state and federal level and our nonprofit partners in the community to really focus on housing and infrastructure in 61605 over the years. One of the numbers I specifically highlighted that probably is slightly alarming to a lot of people is we spent $8 million in the last 5 years on demolitions in that area. Removing blighted, dangerous buildings was a long time coming, but they needed to be removed. Removing almost close to 500 housing units from that area, we need to continue to look for ways to add additional housing units and put population back in that area if we ever hope to attract more commercial business in that area in the future. And that's what those projects have tried to do. That's kind of the strategy we're taking going forward. So the project in front of you tonight is a project from Phoenix Community Development Services and their partner OSF to put a permanent supportive affordable housing project across from Annie Jo Gordon School down at 2702 Krause. I kind of want to walk through because this project has come before council before at a different location. So I kind of want to provide some narrative of how we got to this location. About 4 years ago, Phoenix applied to the state of Illinois for tax credits. They were approved for the location down on St. Mark's right across from OSF. If anyone knows about affordable housing projects, they're never quick or easy. I think, MacArthur Flats that we're getting to the closing stage was a tax credit project from 2 years ago. Churchview Gardens was from 3 or 4 years ago. So they always take a lot of due diligence to get there. As Phoenix was going through that due diligence process at that site, essentially what bad news of rehabbing that site is the financiers essentially said no. Too much work, too big a building, we're not going to support that. At that point, Phoenix had a purchase price with Carl for what the property would cost. In addition, now they would had about $1 million in pre-development costs, and they would have about $2.5 million, about an estimate, to tear down the building. So before they even put a shovel in the ground, about $5 or $6 million hole in the project, they were going to see if they could make it work, but a $6 million hole before those things happen would have been very hard to overcome. At that point, OSF approached Phoenix and brought the city into a discussion to say, that is an area right outside our hospital system. We have future growth. We'd love to become a partner with you. If we could find a different location, we can help you make you whole on what you spent on the property. And in addition to that, we'd be willing to commit to wherever you do choose, if it's appropriate, to bring in a health clinic. So we sat down and looked at some different locations across the city of Peoria. But because it was a tax credit project, there's only specific locations that would apply and meet the criteria of IDA. It essentially has to score on their competitive tax process. So it essentially has to be in an area with a plan or revitalization strategy in place to get the same points and have the same amenities. We had known Churchview Gardens and MacArthur Flats had been approved in 61605. So we started looking at that area. The other thing is we needed to have a large enough parcel with our site control because timing was of the essence because this has to close before the end of the year. The site that we saw, we looked at a location off MacArthur. We didn't control the land and the property wouldn't fit there. We looked at some other locations, but the land and geography wasn't there. So then we started looking at the Harrison site. When we tore down Harrison, if you go back to different news articles, different stories, different discussions, we always have communicated to the public, this is going to be affordable housing in the future. We also had just gone through a pretty robust 18-month choice neighborhoods planning exercise in partnership with PHA in hopes of one day, hopefully with them, applying for a Peoria choice neighborhoods implementation grant that would essentially redevelop that whole site. We're not quite ready to get there, but we're hopeful in the future. And with this in place too, we think that'll be a contributing factor to the application we apply for. Because we had done that choice neighborhood planning already in that area, which identified multi-use affordable housing at this location, we felt this was a good location to suggest to OSF and Phoenix and IDA. When we approached IDA, they ran it through kind of what the other
Illinois
projects.
Housing Development Authority.
Correct, yes, sorry. When the Illinois Housing Development Authority ran through the scoring system, they said, yep, based on a bunch of different factors. A, it had to be close to schools. It had to be close to parks. It had to be on a bus route. It had to meet all those criteria, and they looked at the location and agreed that it would fit their criteria. They gave us approval. Phoenix then had negotiations with OSF to make it work. They came back to the city and said, hey, we think we can make this site work. Let's start having this discussion about going through this process. So that's kind of how we got here. I think when they approached the city that we had that location, I think city staff worked to ensure that it was a good fit in the neighborhood. The project is specifically targeting families experiencing homelessness. And I only mention that because I think part of the narrative that's been out in the public is about the population that this apartment complex will be targeting. And it really just is an affordable housing complex. The population that it's targeting are only homeless because there's not housing units available for them to live in. Once they become housed, they are no longer homeless. The difference with this project is permanent supportive housing. So with that comes permanent supportive housing services for those residents, which means they help them, they have case managers, they help them with job training if they want that, financial literacy, health management. And I think that's a huge thing to keep in mind with this project is that's the targeted population. And I think, we've heard questions about why this location versus the other location. And when you break down this location of what it offers these families, it's families experiencing homelessness and giving them an opportunity to live in a neighborhood right across from the school where they can walk there within 2 blocks of a beautiful park that the city invested in a couple of years ago. It's located right on a bus route. And with permanent supportive housing, I think it does give them an opportunity to go from experiencing homelessness to hopefully thriving and then hopefully moving out after they have had those services and making room for another family that might be going through a similar thing. And I think that's what we're trying to accomplish with this project. While all that is great, I think one of the other tremendous things to come out of this project is a community health clinic and a commitment from OSF to put a community health clinic right there. The entrance to the community health clinic is off of Krause. It's not tucked in the back. It's not tucked on the side. It's off of Krause that is connected by the sidewalk. So when people are walking up to go to the health clinic, they can go to. We've had some questions about, is it just for the residents of the site? No, it's a community health clinic for the community. Obviously the residents of this apartment complex will have access by going through the front door on Krause, just like everyone else. And it really is for the community. And as we continue to develop this project and to build this project, I think OSF and Phoenix are welcome to discussions about specifically hearing from the community and neighborhood what sort of health services they want to provide there. I think some of the questions are what we've talked to, and it's a health clinic, but I think when you say that, people aren't really sure what that means. I would kind of slightly compare it to a prompt care, but just with a little better, more service there than what a prompt care traditionally would have. So you're having a nurse practitioner there, you're having a primary care physician there. You can walk up for different sports physicals, different physicals. I think that's what they're doing, but we can continue to have those discussions. And I think OSF is willing to have those discussions to see what they need there. And we're happy to do that. You know, a couple other things I want to clear up because we've heard different questions. One of those is, you know, is this just a replacement for New Hope Apartments downtown? It's not. You know, New Hope unfortunately closed last year. I think we were all very aware of what happened with that project. This current project has a commitment from the Peoria Housing Authority for 48 housing vouchers. They have a commitment for 55, but that was from the old project at Methodist, and so it'll only be 48 units that they'll actually get for this project. New Hope was specifically tied to federal legislation and federal grants that have been affected through the discussions with permanent supportive housing. In addition, those grants were given to New Hope 25 years ago, and the rent that they could collect was not adjusted for inflation. So the budget was not created to last and to make the maintenance repairs. By having these vouchers tied to these units, it ensures financial stability for the project going forward. Phoenix is really hard. There's not a lot of debt on the $29 or so million investment that'll be made. So they are able to keep those reserves for maintenance issues to make sure it's staffed. So it's not New Hope. It's specifically for families experiencing homelessness, whether that's a single parent and a kid, a parent with two kids, a four-person household. And when you look at the data, not only on the coordinated entry list, there's, you know, a need in our community right now. In your packet, Phoenix put together that data, and also not only from the coordinated entry list, but also the data specifically provided by Peoria Public Schools to show how many of their kids are experiencing homelessness based on what they have to report. And so you see the need in our community for a project like this. We've also heard concerns about why there's 10 one-bedroom units. First of all, 10 by what HUD allows, a one-bedroom unit can and will house a parent and a child. Not ideal, but while the parcel was large, it also has parameters of making sure there's parking, there's a small playground set, there's access for fire and all those things. The 10 one-bedroom were specifically just to make the numbers work, but the vast majority of it is 2- and 3-bedroom units. Last thing I kind of want to touch on is about the need in our community. We've talked about homelessness for a long time in our community. We reach out to the Dream Center and Salvation Army, which are the current shelters that provide housing for families experiencing homelessness. If this project existed today, there's about 22 families in the shelters right now that could move directly into these units. There's another 10 or 12 on the coordinated entry list that are living in places that essentially are uninhabitable that could move into this project. I think that shows us what the need is. We continue to talk about what can we do to address homelessness in our community. The thing we can do is build housing, and I think that's what this project does. And I think, you know, this isn't a build a project and then walk away. This is build a project, and then how do we continue to work with all of our service providers, OSF, Southside Community Center in the area, METEC across the street, the Peoria School District, and say, here's a project that's specifically supporting families who've experienced homelessness. We want to set them up to succeed in the future. How can we all partner and work together? And I think in discussions with OSF and Phoenix and Pastor Irene with Southside Community Center, everyone is on board to approach the project that way. So with that, I know I said a lot, so I'm happy to answer any questions. Debbie is the planning and zoning manager is here with us who can answer any specifics about the planning and zoning case in front of you. They are requesting 4 waivers. One is specifically about I'll actually just pass it off to her so she can give you a little technical term real quick, and then I'll come back real quick. So.
Give you a moment to digest while I pull up my packet. So this project is requesting 4 waivers from our Unified Development Code. These might appear a little bit technical, so I'm happy to answer any questions. The first is a waiver to remove the required minimum floor height of 3 feet above grade. Typically, in this neighborhood commercial zoning district, we would require that if you have apartments or living units on the ground floor, that you build up the ground floor 3 feet, just so it's a little bit higher. We had some conversation with the applicant about this, but they expressed concerns about building costs, so staff did not object to this request. The second request is to exceed the maximum buildable area of 15,000 square feet. This is a specific regulation for the neighborhood commercial district. Typically, these lots are quite a bit smaller. However, this is a 3.3 acre lot, so we felt that it was reasonable to not object to this request. They have a little bit more building area given the size of the lot. The third request was to eliminate the requirement for operable doors every 75 feet. This is in a response to the applicant's interest in having secured entry. And so we are actually limiting the number of doors in which people can enter. Everybody can exit through every single door. Fire code has signed off on this. However, we are trying to spirit guests through a single entry or limited entries just for security purposes, so staff did not object. And the final waiver request was to reduce the minimum parking requirement for multifamily developments. The applicant requested that we reduce our requirement of 1.5 spaces per unit just down to 1 space per unit. So that would be 48 spaces for the entire project. Staff did push back a little bit on this, and we requested that they provide 1.25 spaces per unit, so that's 60 spaces. However, we did condition that they are welcome to use on-street parking toward that requirement. We think that they might eventually, this might actually work out so they have less parking on site. I'm happy to answer any questions about the planning case.
Thank you, Ms. Debbie. And Director Doolin, had you wrapped up your presentation?
Yes, Mayor, I'm ready
Okay.
for any questions. And the
Thank you.
applicant is here too if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you. Your presentation was very comprehensive. I appreciate that. I did have one question for clarification because I've heard different numbers on the level of investment. I've heard this is a $23 million investment. This is a $26 million investment. Tonight, I thought I heard you say a $29 million investment. I mean, what is the level of investment?
I'll actually ask the applicant.
Okay,
She will know, and so I may have misspoken, but.
okay. Ms. Christine Call.
Yeah, the total development cost at this point, the budget is $29 million. The $23 million is the hard construction number.
Okay.
Okay, all the soft costs that go into this, the architect, get you up to the $29 million.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Collin. While you're here, there's 10 one-bedroom, certain number of 2 and 3 bedroom, and there were questions out there about the 1 bedroom. Is it, the initial plan is to also fill those 1 bedrooms with a family that has 1 child?
That
Is
is
that
correct. Yes, so either a 2-parent or 1-parent household with 1 child, under hot occupancy standards can occupy that unit, as well as a single adult. In our tenant selection plan, which is how, when applications are brought forward, they're prioritized that way, families have to go in those units first.
Okay,
Okay, so only if we ever exhausted, which we hope we do, all the families experiencing homelessness, could we ultimately go to a single adult household.
sure. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As someone who has watched this whole process for years, decades, we are certainly very appreciative of any efforts to bring more investment to the neighborhood. Madam Mayor, if I could, I was hoping, I've been inundated with questions from lots of people, and I was hoping to meet with the city manager yesterday, but unfortunately he was not around. So I was hoping what we could do. Traditionally, this council has always heard from nonprofits. If we could, Madam Mayor, I would like to have a formal presentation both from Phoenix and OSF. I would like to defer this. This would give stakeholders, everybody, an opportunity to ask questions. I've had council people asking me questions. I've been in the neighborhood. People have been asking me questions. I think it would do a lot to alleviate any concerns if we had a formal presentation like we typically do from any other nonprofit with a project. And it would be awesome to hear from OSF as well. I would like to allow, if my council members, as has been the custom, I hope they'll support me in, allowing stakeholders, folks to get an opportunity to hear from these two parties in a formal presentation. At that time, it would give everybody an opportunity to hear what's coming. Maybe I'll get some of those questions answered I didn't get answered yesterday, and I can also invite those people to come, those stakeholders, so that they can hear about what's going on. Without that, I think people tend to be really suspicious. And one thing I did hear at the planning and zoning meeting that was the question was asked if the residents had in that neighborhood had an opportunity to have input, and the response from Phoenix was no. So I could even arrange for some of those folks to hear from them. And so I think in order to do something like this, any justice, it would only be appropriate to have a formal presentation by Phoenix and OSF, especially in light of the fact OSF has never been in 61605 in this capacity. So if we could, I would like to defer this to allow me to go back and speak with those folks, and they can bring their stuff here and present it, and give folks an opportunity to see what's going on.
You want to make a motion?
I would love to make a motion to defer this matter 3 or 4 weeks. I could get like I said, we need to have a formal presentation. I could even reach out to some of the folks in the neighborhood. I've been in that neighborhood, and I think they would be amenable to a public hearing of some sort.
Do you want to move to this August 25th, or do you want to move to the first meeting in September?
Let's do the first meeting of September, please. Give
Is there
folks
a
a
second?
chance to
Seconded
hear.
by Councilmember Kelly. That's a motion to defer until the first meeting, until September. And I have to say, Councilwoman Jackson, I don't support the deferral because I don't think it's necessary in order to make those presentations that you're talking about. I think that we can approve the project if that's what results tonight, and those presentations that you want can still happen. I think OSF, I think Phoenix is still willing to make those presentations to the community to answer more questions. There were questions, I think, that have been asked since it hit the news, since the planning and zoning meeting. But if there's more questions, and I think that they would be happy to provide more detailed presentations and community sessions. And I think that's part of the plan anyway, to kind of gain some awareness, community awareness along the way. But for that reason, and because I know that there's timelines associated with this project, I cannot support a deferral.
Can I respond to that?
Pardon me?
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there always been timelines. I was told that 5 years ago when this project came forward. So in the interest of transparency, people will get an opportunity to hear from them. They never do. And one thing I heard tonight that was a little disturbing when Community Development Director Doolin, he said, we felt this was a good location. People are listening to this. You have prided yourself on community input, and, again, this is an opportunity to at least allow folks valuable stakeholders to hear from the presenters. Otherwise, people walk away with suspicion. They ask questions. They talk. There's no transparency. There's nobody. Talk to them. We hear that all the time, too often. This would be an opportunity, I think, to resolve some of those issues, longstanding issues.
And in my opinion, a deferral doesn't prevent that from happening.
You're the mayor. You're not the residents in that community, though.
Well, say that
I
again?
said the residents in that community and some stakeholders, people who have called me, who have vested interest in that redevelopment, want an opportunity to hear from these
I've
folks.
spoken to many of those people. I've been talking to those people for over 5 years, I guess maybe 7 years, being elected to the council. In fact, I was part of the Choice Neighborhoods Initiative. I initiated that grant application with staff and with Peoria Housing Authority, and for 18 months, it was Peoria South, the Harrison Homes area, that we had public engagement, community engagement, school engagement, social service engagement, not-for-profit, police engagement. Residents were intensely involved in those discussions and understood that housing, affordable housing is needed. That's been a priority
I don't disagree
every
with
time.
you. I don't disagree with you. But again, this type of affordable housing, home for the homeless, people have questions about it. We haven't heard anything about safety in that community, workforce development. We just approved $3.5 million for a police substation and an EMS substation. And your redevelopment plans, 2 of them, Madam Mayor, call for those. In the interest of transparency, I think it's only crucial that the public get a chance to hear from these folks. We want to make sure things are done right. And there's certain things that are in all 4 of those redevelopment plans. And I have harped and harped and harped about infrastructure. If I can't facilitate that process, certainly we could address issues with regards to public safety. And so these are valid questions. I mean, you can throw millions and millions of dollars at projects, but if they're not done with public input and the right intent, then it's all for naught, Madam Mayor. And you know this. I mean, people have been critical for years about not having an opportunity to hear or listen to these folks that want to put projects, and then they get all this money, and folks feel like they had no say-so in the matter. I just asked for a deferral to give folks an opportunity. OSF is a big company. They've never been in 61605. This would be a nice time to hear from them, and Phoenix.
Tremendous opportunity. So let's go to, there's a motion on the floor. The motion is to defer this item until the first council meeting in September. That motion has been seconded. Discussion on the motion. Councilmember Euler?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. As I recall, I heard that there are some financial timelines that a deferral would significantly affect and would greatly put this project at risk. Could somebody speak to those?
As I mentioned, it's a 4-year-old, 5-year-old tax credit project. To even get the extension to this point, we had to have meetings with IDA, and essentially they said they need the project in mid-September, which means tonight needs to be approved likely, so then the architects and engineers can finalize it, get the financing documentation ready, and ready to submit to IDA for final approval, because they need about 45 days and they have to close and start before the end of the year.
Thank you. I'll be opposing the deferral based on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Carmona?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As it pertains to the deferral, that was pretty much the exact question I was going to ask, so no need.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yes. This is discussion is pertaining to the deferral. Councilmember Allen?
My comments were to the original motion.
Okay. Councilmember Gordon Young?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My comments were to the original motion as well.
Okay, thank you. The motion on the floor is to defer until September. No more discussion. Please cast your ballots. The motion fails with several nays, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nays. Velpula, Riggenbach, Euler, Ali, Carmona, Allen, Vespa, Gordon Young. Want to clear that? You want to clear that slate? Can I get a motion to approve? Moved by Councilmember Riggenbach, seconded by Councilmember Euler. Discussion. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Director Doolin, I sent you a series of questions earlier that I've been fielding from constituents, and so I appreciate your response. I just want to reiterate some of those and just in a spirit of transparency so the public can hear these. You talked about the different funding sources, so can you confirm that we've got majority of the funding coming from the federal government, we have some state funds, and then we have private and then local funds all funding the project, sir?
Yes, it's about a 40% split between federal and 40% for state, and then about the 20% is made up of the rest of the money. If you remember, when this first project first came, it was as ARPA had just been approved, and separate from the specific earmark the city got for ARPA, entitlement communities also got a subsection of home funds specifically for permanent supportive housing projects, and the city got about a little over $2 million that specifically has to go towards permanent supportive housing. We have until 2028, I think, to get it spent, and that's what was earmarked to this project. If this item does get approved, that item will actually come before you in the next meeting or the meeting after that to change location, but that's our investment into it. But the rest of it's about 80% federal and state tax credits and some other IDA grants they got.
And you spoke on how the different funding mechanisms had a certain criteria where they can be invested in to support a project like this, correct?
Yes, so the tax credits, the 9% tax credits, essentially, as you submit for the project, you get additional points if you submit for, it's going to be permanent supportive housing, and that's what this project was submitted to under IDA under.
And can you speak to how the residents will be determined again, the criteria? I know you spoke on there'll be families, but is there any other demographic criteria that you all will look into screening these applicants?
Yeah, so the process works that essentially for anyone who's experiencing homelessness in our community, there's a multitude of nonprofit agencies around the community that can do an intake. One of the things that the bureaucracy does well in this case is it coordinates all of the agencies to put the names into a centralized database, and that creates the coordinated entry list. Essentially from there, there's different criteria to get you where you're on the list, where your housing need is, where your priority is. So that is kind of where they start with this program of if you're on the list, you're a family, you meet these criteria. At that point, because there's a PHA voucher tied to the parcel, you have to then be screened through the PHA voucher process as well because it's a project-based voucher. They have some criteria about certain backgrounds they exclude. Obviously, it's across from the school. There's families in there, so sex offenders are not eligible for this property. They also have some other violent crime targets that the federal law does allow them in certain cases to exclude from. But that's kind of how they set the criteria. At any point, someone who's experiencing housing insecurity in our area can reach out to one of our nonprofits to start going through that process. Unfortunately, sometimes in our community, people have to double up at houses or sleeping in their car, and for whatever reason, they're not making that outreach to nonprofits to get them on the list. So, our nonprofit agencies are constantly trying to reinforce that to the community of if you reach out to us, you get on this list, we can, when housing items come up, we can help you with that. Separate from this question, but that list is kind of how they go down. That's part of one of the reasons the city launched its flexible rent program is because federal law requires you to go through that list. One of the things with our flexible rent program that we run, because it's our local money that we use from our ARPA funds, we're able to target people on that list that might have some sort of income that they just need a little bit of a leg up. So whether that's a security deposit or a first and last month rent, moving expenses. But because that's our general fund money, we can choose anyone on the list. We don't have to go in the order where they'll go through the order of the list.
Thank you. And I believe that this complex will have security 24/7, correct?
It will be staffed 24/7.
Okay.
So essentially, one of their caseworkers staffs it
Okay.
24/7. not a security guard. I would actually probably call him more of a mental health professional with their social work background versus a security guard. But the project does have security cameras in all the common areas. They've indicated in previous discussions that they will be happy to put those in to our police department and have that relationship with them. All of their access points are carded access. The way they run their properties is if you have guests, you check them in, check them out, things like that, just to keep that security level down at the property.
Thank you, Director Doolin. I'll conclude with this. I have really done a lot of thinking on this project. And first off, I want to give kudos to my colleague from the 1st District for your advocacy and champion for your constituents and wearing that district hat. I know how emotionally invested we can be when it comes to our specific districts. And so just trying to wrestle with where I was going to go on a specific project. But where it really came home for me is about a year and a half ago, a young man that used to volunteer with us with one of our toy drives we do every year, him and his brother committed a crime. I'm not going to go into the details, but when he got released from the JDC, I said, well, why did you do this? And he said, well, me and my mom and my siblings are living in the Dream Center. And it was the first day of school. I went to school and I wasn't able to access the laundry the night before. And so my clothes were dirty. And when I got to school, I realized that I needed a few dollars so that way I can go get some fits from the local corner store. And when I heard that, it's not that I condoned his behavior, but as someone who was fortunate to have parents to put clothes on layaway so that way the first day of school I could lay my clothes out the night before and I can go to school with a level of freshness, I felt for him. And I feel for the families that when I go downtown in my office, I pass the Dream Center and I'm seeing the school bus picking up kids from the Dream Center. And, you know, that right there really touches me. And I am very empathetic to the residents. And it's always a conversation of location and does it make sense? But at the end of the day, I think this is the right project for the right time. We know we have challenges in our community in serving this population. So it's not easy, but I will be supporting the project tonight. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Gordon Young.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, those questions sort of filled about 6 of mine, so I'll take those off the list. Let me first commend you, Director Doolin, and your staff. I think you hit it on the head when you spoke about all the investments. One of the things that is really important for me is that we invest in 61605 because there's been such a disinvestment for so long. And it's going to take a while for us to get to a place where it is as it deserves to be. As it was when I was growing up. I grew up right there, 61605, coincidentally right across the street from a school. And I remember when the grocery stores where you can go in 4 different directions and there was a grocery store, or there were restaurants, there were pharmacies, there was a car wash. I remember when it was a community. And when I'm seeing the blight removed, I talk about green spaces, improving morale and mental health, like that matters. And so the work that's being done there. I believe that when we're talking about the unhoused population, there is a bias quite often. And sometimes that's just because we're not having conversations with the people that have the greatest need. Or sometimes it may be an experience of our own, but at the end of the day, I think it's important that we take care of all of Peoria. I also want to commend Councilmember Jackson for her work in this. I didn't realize that this, I'm 3 years in, I'm a junior on the council, so I didn't realize how long these conversations have been taking place. And I do agree with the constituents in that we have to do a better job of being more transparent and including them in those conversations. And quite frankly, some of the council, including us in those conversations, where we're not running backs out here, trying to block some things or trying to score a touchdown without, knowing what the play is. But at the end of the day, I think that we are a social service rich area. This project is one that takes away the limited access. You're bringing those social services to people who could benefit from it. Being a psychotherapist myself, that is quite often one of the greatest barriers, being on the bus line, being able to walk right across the street from school. And I was late sometimes. I mean, just, I think, you just jump up and think you can take it for granted. But nevertheless, that's one of the coolest things as well. But just bringing back the sense of community. And then let's not forget that there were apartments across the street from a school. This isn't a new concept in this area. And I also want to say that not only do I have family, including my mother and my daughter, who live in the 61605 area, not very far from here, I have friends and constituents who have reached out. And, while there are some people that are opposed to it, there are many who are excited to see the redevelopment, to see the revitalization, to see, life come back to 61605. So with that being said, I am in favor of the rebuilding, this project, and what's to come. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Carmona.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, to me, it looks like on paper, this looks pretty good, but obviously execution is paramount and follow through. And I want to say that I wasn't able to go to the planning and zoning meeting, but I did read the minutes, and I have to tell Councilwoman Jackson that I do agree with your concerns. I think they're very valid around public safety, proper management, accountability, transparency. And at the same time, I after talking with City Manager and Director Doolin about the time frame of this project and what it means, I think that's also something we have to take very seriously. I have a few questions about the community information guide that Phoenix put together. I guess I'll begin with page 17 of this guide expresses that there's going to be security cameras in common areas. Is that both indoor and outdoor? Do we know those details? Both?
Yes.
Thank you. Page 16 outlines medical, appointment and grocery shopping, among other transportation. While these things obviously sound great and I support them, is this, I just want to make sure this isn't a book full of promises and it's something that's actually going to, there's a plan to keep it sustainable for the period of the existence of this facility. Can we hear anything about that, about those services? Have they been tested? How exactly are they going to work and be efficient and be able to serve all the members that live there?
I'll pass it over to Chris Call, but I think one of the good things specifically about this project that is quite unique from other projects we've had in the past is the way the financing is set up to pay for the project. All of the things Councilman Allen asked about are specific. 80% of that $29 million is federal and state grants. Other money is from ours. So there is some private investment, some other fundraising they have had it done. But the debt service specifically on the project won't be what you would traditionally sometimes see in other affordable housing projects. So I think the operational revenues and operational expenses are something that goes back into the property. I think one of the good things about this project is that Phoenix Community Development Services is local. I think sometimes when we bring affordable housing projects to our community, they have a local partner, but it's still in partnership with an affordable housing. And sometimes that developer fee goes out of our area. When you have a local developer who's doing local projects, even if they are getting a developer fee, that's going back into providing those services and funding that operation for the future. But I will pass it over to specifically answer your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. As far as the specific question about transportation, the best way I could explain it actually is that 5 years ago we had 4 vehicles and now we have 12, meaning that transportation continues to be a growing unmet need upon our population, and so we continue to invest in our own fleet. So as well as investing in some of our supportive service staff or dedicated transportation drivers. So we run, large 12-passenger van. All I can tell you is that we keep getting grant money to grow those services based off of the need. And our track record just shows that we've continued to increase it. That's really the only thing I could explain. And so we just intend to continue it to be a part of the program. Now, what I could also tell you is that, yes, if somebody waved a wand and all of a sudden all those social service grants went away, that would be an issue. It just has not been our experience in the 22 years that I've been at the head of the agency. We've continued to grow it.
Thank you for that answer. I have a couple more for you too, if you don't mind. Page 20, we talked about OSF setting up a clinic there, which sounds great. But, and I think Director Doolin touched on this a little bit, but I'd like to kind of speak about it a little bit more. It says on page 20 that nothing's really finalized, and it's very vague, and it even says, whether the accepted insurances, the hours of operations, or the specific services are still unknown. How close are you in the process of actually understanding what this clinic will really look like and what services will actually be provided?
Am I allowed to defer to Ryan Spain? Ryan Spain's here representing OSF, and I think they're better suited to answer your specific questions. Sorry, Ryan.
Good evening, Mayor and the Council. Ryan Spain here on behalf of OSF Healthcare. Councilman Carmona, thanks for your question. OSF is so thrilled and excited to be a partner with Phoenix on this development. And one of the cornerstones was to come forward and serve as an anchor tenant to establish a healthcare clinic on this site. And so we are eagerly looking forward, if the project moves forward, how we can engage with the community and develop the right care model for this site. It will be a care model that will be likely very similar to the on-call locations that you've seen throughout the community, but we're looking forward to establishing what are the right kind of services, the right kind of special activities. One of the things we've worked with Phoenix is to make sure that there is a referral access for residents within this development, but also services that will be of benefit to the entire surrounding neighborhoods. There is some adjacent community space adjacent to the clinic that we anticipate using to host special occasions for healthcare services that are in need for the community. So we've made at least a minimum 15-year commitment to occupy this space. That's a much longer lease than OSF is accustomed to doing, but the intention is to set up a permanent commitment to be a footprint here, and the sisters are dedicated to making an impact in the 61605 zip code and being a great resource for the south side of Peoria.
Thank you very much. Sorry to put you on the spot, but I really appreciate your answer. My last question is, again, for Ms. Call, so just one more. Thank you. On page 21, under the public accountability box, the last sentence says Phoenix Manor apartments are required to remain affordable for, and then it says term year, as if it was forgotten to, to put it in there. So can you?
Sorry, apologize for that. Under the regular tax credit, compliance period is 15 years. When we do permanent supportive housing, we make it an additional 15-year extended use agreement, so 30 years.
I see. Okay, thank you very much. That's my line of questioning for you, so I really appreciate it. Madam Mayor, I have one more thing to say as well, and I brought this up with the city manager. I know that this project is reliant on these vouchers from PHA, and so I went to the PHA website to see if I can find some of the minutes to get more information, and we've all received emails and calls. I'm sure I've received many calls about the state of the PHA, what looks to me of no transparency at all or lack of administrative, well-doing to actually put information out to the public. So I think it's very important that we visit this and talk about it very seriously about what this looks like for the public to make sure that they're aware of the PHA's mission and whether they're really fulfilling it or not. And I know it's kind of up in the air right now with the, interim and all that stuff, but I do think for the general public, it's very important that we nudge them along to do what's right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Riggenbach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Director Doolin, for walking us through the process and going back to that 4 or 5 years ago when the council voted, I think it was a unanimous vote, to allow the St. Mark's Court building to become the site of this. And we were all thrilled about the possibility of ending homelessness for families. And as that process drew longer than anticipated and the costs continued to mount, we really want to recognize the efforts of Phoenix. And besides Director Call, we see many of her leadership team here and board member as well. So thank you for the vision of providing this kind of affordable housing for families. And I think it's critical that we use the proper terminology in this, and that it's permanent supportive housing, and that there's going to be services provided. As we've talked ad nauseum, in my opinion, about tiny homes, the question always is the location and how close are you to the services? Well, to look at the services on this site with METEC, with the school, with Tree Wind Park, which, again, as you noted, we've invested heavily into. I think the bus line, there's a lot of good things about this specific location. Looking back at the St. Mark's Court, it truly was a concrete jungle, if you will, and to think you're going to have kids living in that heart of the urban core as opposed to a place where there's actually green space. And I think that speaks highly to the vision of what families need and what this project is all about. To have case management for the residents there is another attribute that I think is something that needs to be highlighted, that there will be caseworkers working with the folks there to help them to the next step. And perhaps they could move on to one of the Habitat homes that's being built on the McKinley side, or the East Bluff homes that POF did in the East Bluff a number of years ago. So this is not the end all be all, but it's definitely a step. And I think the number, I've jotted down a lot of notes during the various presentations, but to think that there's 22 families right now in the Dream Center and Salvation Army that could move to a permanent site out of a shelter is something that really speaks to my heartstrings. So I think I don't want us to overlook some of these things. And OSF, Mr. Spain, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for all the efforts that you've made as this process has moved forward to have a presence in 61605. I think that speaks volumes to the mission of the sisters, and we want to recognize that and thank you for that. One final thought I would like to throw out is talking about public engagement and how we do that. I don't think we need to be ashamed of our public engagement efforts. The mayor referenced the choice neighborhoods and the number of community meetings that they held, getting input from the people who live there. In the East Bluff, I've hosted numerous meetings, and I hear oftentimes, oh, the city's got another plan. But you know what? The reason we do that is so that when a project like this comes along, we can say, oh, look, here's the information you need to make it happen. And we provide opportunities, a lot of opportunities for folks to weigh in before there's a project. And that way you can talk about it rationally, and there's not going to be the emotional impact that sometimes convolutes our logic. So I just think that there's been a lot of work, a lot of discussion about this, and I am wholeheartedly supporting this tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm fairly sure that I will lose on this item, but I would like to make a few points. Number one, we have been building these kinds of facilities mostly for poor people in this country for 50, 60, 70 years. And more often than not, these places, before they're torn down and replaced, they become big problems for their neighborhoods. But there's lots and lots and lots of money in doing these kinds of things. And there is seemingly no interest, or almost no interest, in taking a fraction, a small fraction of that many, in this particular case, and helping Peorians who live in the south side of Peoria, or who have rental properties in the south side of Peoria, helping them with rehabs and bringing their properties up. If we want to spend some money, Councilwoman Gordon Young, you talked about a community. This is house, 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 house. You know, and you knew your neighbors, and you knew, you know, and your kids are walking on the sidewalk and all that. That's what the South Side was when I was a kid, and when you were a kid, many years later when you were a kid. But it seems to me these kinds of things don't work, but they work for some people. Now, this project is going to cost, by my calculation, $604,000 per unit. There are a lot of hands out in these deals. I remember in the 30 houses that we put up on the East Bluff, the architect, 4 house designs, okay, which were standard houses. They fit in with the neighborhood very nicely. The architect for that project got $25,000 per house. The architect got $750,000 to design 4 very standard arts and crafts kinds of homes that would fit in on the. There's tons and tons of money here. All right, we're not going to stop it. I'm not going to stop it. I know, but we've invested and invested and invested in 05. We've redone Western. We've redone MacArthur. We put up a new firehouse. We've done this and that and all that, because if you build it, they will come. They didn't come. We've never changed the economics of living on the south side of Peoria or the North Valley or the East Bluff. we should concentrate on that, in my opinion, for a tiny fraction of the kind of money we're spending on stuff like this. Fixing up houses that Peorians own. You know, instead, we're very, very good at building something and that neighborhood the neighborhood empties out because you can't compete with these brand new, shiny, beautiful places. So you have 30 units. There are 30 more abandoned houses in the neighborhood. I think we do this stuff backwards. We do it with the best of intentions. I do not doubt that. But let's look around at some history. These things don't really work. Well, they work, I'm sorry, they work for some people, but they tend, after enough years, they tend not to work for the residences. For the residents, I should say. I could say more, but I will not take any more of the council's time. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Velpula.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll make a very simple comment. Thank you, Director Doolittle, for all your leadership. I wanted to support this item on this agenda because it transforms a vacant property into affordable housing with healthcare support from OSF that ensures support for families in our community. I believe this project is meaningful investment in the neighborhood, and so I'll vote yes on it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Euler.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Just a couple comments. First of all, I think you can't debate the fact that the need is real and the need is great. Some of the argument here has been more about the funding stream, which is not what we're here to discuss this evening. It's not on our plate to decide how this is paid for and what's done with the money that's funded. While I have my own questions about the funding model, that's not the discussion that we're here to have tonight. We're here to talk about the location and whether this is an appropriate location for it. And for the last several decades, the decision has been made to put facilities like this in the middle of the central business district in downtown where there are not resources, contrary to popular belief, to assist the folks in these types of challenging circumstances like convenience stores, gas stations, prompt cares without having to sit in an 8-hour wait in the regular emergency room, parks. There's no schools in the middle of downtown. There's no actual resources downtown for the folks who need these things most. The resources are in the older neighborhoods, and bringing the facilities to those types of challenges is a key part of what we're here to discuss and an important part of this decision. So I will be voting in favor of it because I think this is an actual win for this property. I think it will be a win for the neighborhood, and it helps us get more medical services out to the constituents who need them most. Thank you.
Welcome. Councilmember Vespa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Director Doolin, and all the parties that helped this project get to where we are now. I know it's been a long road, and we've looked at several sites, but a lot of work has been put into this, and we're looking at a big investment. 61605 is still desperate for investment. Yep, we've stepped it up the last few years, but there's still plenty of vacant lots, plenty of blight, and I'll point out, when we accept these grants, we pay pennies on the dollar. Our 100,000 residents are a tiny fraction of population of Illinois and the United States. I think we should take advantage of these opportunities when they show themselves. I also want to point out that these will not just be families from the Dream Center. There are plenty of other forms of temporary accommodations. Couch surfing, staying with family members and friends, living in constant fear of having their families torn apart because child services will take their children away for not having stable housing or food or clothing. which every child deserves. Full stop. Imagine the stress that causes to everyone involved every single day, to every member of those families. These are families with kids. We're doing a favor for these kids. Having a reliable home, an address, laundry services, as Councilman Allen pointed out. Regarding engagement, I do think more notice is never bad. I think we should send, physical mail in addition to email and other means of communication. We should probably send out notice further than what the 300 feet that I think we legally have to whenever we hold these hearings. I'm all for that. I think we probably should expand that. I wish we had more time for engagement. Unfortunately, time is of the essence because funding will dry up if we don't break ground by the end of the year. And we need housing and investment and health care. I understand and I do appreciate the concerns, but I'll be voting yes. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Director Doolin refers to this area as 61605. I refer to it as the South Side because it's where I grew up. And after I was grown, I left for a number of years, and then I returned. I bought a home, 2512 Marquette Street, which is right down the street, down Griswold and to the left from this area. I lived in that home for about 10 years until I remarried and then left the area. But I know I don't live in the South Side now, but the South Side is still in me. I still have many family members that live on the South Side of Peoria. My mother lived there for 54 years. I just sold her home there just a few months ago because she lives with me now. But we were there, she was there for many, many years. And I sold it actually above list price, which is rare on the South Side. So many people have left the South Side of Peoria. When I was growing up there were over 35,000 people living there. Today, there's less than 14,000. People have moved rapidly from that area. Over time, we've lost over 5,000 people from the first district, mainly the South Side of Peoria, because of the lack of quality, affordable housing. That's why they left. People that didn't want to leave could not find quality, affordable housing on the South Side. Dilapidated roofs, dilapidated housing. Many of those housings, thank God for the city, the land bank, the work of your department director to demolish many of those homes. So you don't see as many boarded up in that area. But I honestly am very excited about this opportunity. I'm very excited about the investment that it brings to the South Side of Peoria and Peoria South. I'm excited. It's a beautiful two-story design. I was hoping, Councilwoman Jackson, that we would be able to celebrate this together. That was my hope, that we would celebrate this win for Peoria South Side. I want to thank Phoenix. I want to thank OSF for their investment. I think that it is a great start in repopulating this area of our city. We have to repopulate this area in order to sustain grocery stores, retail stores, pharmacies. We have to have the population, which means housing comes first. Housing first to get people there. We need more density in that area. So I'm very excited to have the clinic, the health clinic there. I think it's very important for the area. It's something that the people there have been wanting. It's something that we have asked for on a number of occasions. The NAACP has asked for OSF clinic to be in the South Side of Peoria. OSF has finally said yes. And when Mr. Spain, I call him Rep. Spain, I know he's representing OSF, but you said something important. You said permanent in your speech tonight. I know there's a 15-year guarantee, but there's an intention for permanency, and I love that. I love that. So I think that what we're doing is bringing people back home to this area, because from my understanding, about 25% of the people on that list that will potentially move into this home, actually, their last home was in Peoria South Side. So we're bringing them back home, and we're supporting them with beautiful, permanent housing for their families. So I'm very excited about this project. Please cast your votes. Motion passes with 2 nays, Jackson and Kelly. Madam Clerk?
26-197 are communications from A, Councilmember Jackson with a request to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 20 regulating multifamily rental property with the addition of Article 10 titled Security Provisions, and B, City Manager and Corporation Council with a request to receive and file the first reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 20, Article 8, nuisances, sections related to chronic nuisance properties. And I need separate votes on each, please.
Thank you. I will defer first to Corporation Counsel Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Per the council's instruction, we have provided a draft of the ordinance revisions, which staff had presented a few months ago as a set of solutions to the concerns that Councilwoman Jackson had raised. I just want to mention that Councilwoman Jackson and I share a common goal in this enterprise, which is dealing with folks who co-opt rental properties, and particularly congregate rental properties for criminal purposes. So we are aligned on where we want to wind up. The tools that we would use, we have a difference of opinion about what might ultimately be enforceable, what we might successfully defend if we're challenged. And so the recommended changes to our existing nuisance ordinance are presented as item B. I think the main issue is that we have retooled that, and I share Councilwoman's frustration with that tool. Over the last 6 years, it has been somewhat negated by a settlement that we had agreed to that is no longer constricting the council's discretion. So we would broaden the application of that tool to apply to violations over the entire congregate property rather than single units. We would be able to proceed under the nuisance provisions with 3 violations within a year instead of 3 violations within 6 months. There's also a set of measures for remedies that include the opportunity to meet with and develop an abatement plan with the property owner and avoid penalties entirely if they'll participate in that. There are specific provisions, not just for fines, which have always been in this, but also to have the ability to negate the use of the property if that's necessary for a limited period of time. But more fundamentally, to develop an abatement plan with the property owner, including security provisions, similar to what Councilwoman Jackson would apply by general application in item A, which we feel would be much more difficult to defend. This tool that we're recommending in item B applies on the basis of events that then trigger the response rather than a rule of general application. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but we've presented it as a first reading because consistent with our pattern when we're changing the code, we don't suggest that we avoid the first reading. So that's why that's presented as a first reading tonight. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do appreciate all of your hard work, Corporation Counsel Hayes. I was not attempting to circumvent your expertise. I don't want to waste this opportunity because I think there's a real concern out there, and I hope it was conveyed by the folks that struggled to get in here at the last council meeting to share some of their concerns. But most of the information I received, sir, was from police leadership, rank and file officers, residents over the last 5-6 years. And I remember when I initially had this conversation with the city manager, I talked about some places in town that had best practices. And I think we could learn from them. I'd be willing to defer this. I really, there was some concern about cost. I think one example, Robert Cottingham Property Management does an excellent job. There's no problems hardly, well, at least not of this nature at their facilities throughout the city. If you don't mind, sir, I would really be interested in deferring this matter and working a little bit more, getting a little bit more information, because I think there are some wonderful models here in town, best practices that we could learn from. Public safety is a real issue for me, and I can't, I think we as a council have to do a little bit more to satisfy concerns with regards to public safety. I mean, there were some apologies that went out to the folks that were talking about some of the issues they deal with. And a lot of these folks are women. There are men too. But I think I would like to, if I could defer this matter, and I would like to do a little bit more work myself and meet with you, Corporation Counsel Hayes, and whoever else you are able to get information from to find out how we can make this a better nuisance ordinance.
Are you speaking to A and B or just A?
Yes, ma'am, A and B.
Is there a second? Oh, deferring for how long?
If we could have at least a month, Madam Mayor.
Is there a second? Is there a second? I'm sorry, there's no second, Councilwoman Jackson.
Well, I guess I don't have a choice. All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Okay, so do you want to, do you want to make a motion regarding item A? Okay.
Some questions from my colleagues here, but being that they're not, I'll go ahead and make a motion, Madam Mayor, for approval of item A.
It's been moved to approve item A. Is there a second? Is there a second? Okay, there's no second. Councilmember Kelly?
I move to approve item B.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Allen to approve item B. Councilmember Riggenbach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Corporation Counsel, as we look at these key amendments, I think it's a little confusing when we say that we're going to 3 violations in 12 months as opposed to 180 days, 6 months. Would you explain so everybody understands that that is expanding, that the current ordinance is restricted to it per unit, and the new suggestion is for per property?
Yes, and I'm sorry if I brushed over that too quickly. We're looking at the management of these congregate units as a whole and retooling it to apply across that entire property instead of just a unit-by-unit basis. So that's one of the major changes to this. And in addition, prior to that lawsuit, the council's ordinance provided this 3 violations within a year. And so we're moving back to that broader application. And so it's very unusual to have significant events on repeat very quickly, especially in a single unit. And so what we're suggesting to council is that this will be applied much more frequently. But because there is a whole series of different penalties and options and an opportunity to enter into an agreed abatement plan, that we feel even if it does start applying to a number of properties, we will be able to bring property owners, property managers into compliance through those abatement agreements rather than a massive number of penalties or imposition of the stronger remedies within the ordinance. And so we would then have a basis to impose the types of security provisions, things like that in those abatement plans. If we weren't successful getting that voluntarily, we could ask the administrative hearing officer to impose that as part of the outcome of the case. And so we think that these tools would address many of the concerns and use the methods that are being used in more successful congregate living situations where they're needed, as opposed to a rule of general application. Thank you.
If I may continue.
Yes.
The Housing Commission met last week, and this was discussed at length, and they offered a few suggestions as we were talking about potential enforcement actions, the menu of what could be chosen. I'll have Nicole Morrow, the housing coordinator, forward that to you, but just to highlight for the council, a couple suggestions that they would like to have us consider would be that the security cameras, you know, after a certain number of violations or however it's determined, security cameras would be required and that they would be connected with the police department. Is it the FUSIS system? Is that what we call it? So that was one suggestion. Another thought was case management on site through nonprofit organizations. So if there would be the possibility of working with some of these organizations that provide services to work directly with the property manager. And then the third one was, this one might be a little difficult, Corporation Counsel, excuse me, but how is there any way to make the removing of problematic tenants more streamlined? There's a couple property managers on the Housing Commission, and they've just expressed extreme frustration with the getting the problem tenants out. So I don't know exactly how that looks legally and with fair housing and everything, but that's something that would like to at least have on the table. Thank you.
And I just wanted to clarify, Councilman Kelly had made a motion to approve, but we've suggested a first reading, so it would be hopefully amend to receive and file. And then the Illinois Human Rights Act has many provisions that impact this type of ordinances. And this is why this ordinance has become so complex. Not entirely my fault, but we're trying to develop tools that'll work despite the restrictions that the legislature has, I think, correctly put in place to protect victims of crimes. So when we get into trying to remove by the hand of government tenants in these settings, the legislature takes a very dim view of that. And so it's really going to have to be up to the private sector to utilize the least remedies that they have for those outcomes, rather than relying on government to move in and do that. And so I'll just share with you that that tool is going to be very difficult for us to wield, but it is something that the private management companies that operate many of these properties can utilize through their lease provisions. Thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
Could I extend your contact information to some of these property managers that have brought that up to help them strengthen their leases?
Yes. I'd imagine I've already had that conversation with some of them, but I'm happy to have it again.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Madam Mayor.
Councilman Kelly made the motion to receive and file. Councilmember Allen seconded that. Tell me what your point was in
What I
restating that.
heard Councilman Kelly say was to approve, and I apologize if I misheard that, so.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Receive and file. Got it. Okay, I understand. Okay, thank you. I had a question to Corporation Counsel Hayes regarding, say this passes tonight, this modified ordinance. How do we let the property owners know about? Do we notify this group, or how do we get the information out to them that the ordinance has been strengthened and what the details are?
I think some public notice would be appropriate. We
Okay.
don't do that at many occasions when we pass ordinances, but I'm happy to undertake an effort to make certain that we do some outreach about the change to the ordinance and what we're doing and explain it.
Okay,
We haven't
Director
developed
Doolin.
that, but we'd be happy to do so.
Okay, great. Director Doolin, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I believe we have a significant amount of landlords' email addresses as their property registration. In addition, as part of the code enforcement work we do, they can register for notifications when we do an abate or work order, and because of that, we have their email address. So I think we can work with IS to send a mass email blast out pretty easily.
Okay, I think we should. I don't want people to say I didn't comply because I didn't know.
A good reminder of the rules sometimes gets more people to follow the rules, so I agree.
Yes, thank you.
Your Honor, we could also utilize the landlord-tenant registry, the
Okay.
annual renewals, and make sure that there's an information piece on all of those, so that all of the landlords throughout the
Excellent.
community that register their properties with us would receive that notice on renewal, which they're required to do on an annual basis.
Excellent.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilmember Euler?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. What would be the timeline for further discussion and action on this?
So typically, when we get a first reading, we're going to present, we're going to take into account the input from council tonight. I'll be in contact with the folks that participate in the discussion with Councilman Riggenbach at the Housing Commission, and we'll incorporate those edits, and we'll put it on unfinished business at the next meeting, the regular business, I'm sorry, at the next meeting for passage, and we'll describe the changes we made from where we're at tonight and answer any additional questions. But we'll try to incorporate the ideas that Councilman Riggenbach has brought forward from that committee.
Well, I guess the reason I ask is I know there's some challenges, but I'm not prepared to say that I'm ready to support what's in here and that I want to continue to dissect this and add more input to it potentially. So will there be further opportunity to do that past this? Otherwise, I would not want to support
Council
this
always has the
tonight.
discretion to defer matters as long as it takes, and we're happy to present the information and present it again.
Okay.
Make sure we get to the right place. So there's no real time pressure on us about getting this ordinance established, and we could also make certain that we have an effective date that's out far enough for us to engage in the public information process that the mayor has requested.
And Councilman, as part of your dialogue this evening, if there's a desire to maybe have this come back in a month or in 6 weeks, so you have more time for discussion and debate, that's something that if the council is amenable to that, that's something that we can do and structure that. So.
Sounds like it.
I'd propose a substitute motion to defer 30 days.
For how long?
30 days.
30 days. Okay, is there a second to that? Seconded by Councilmember Carmona. A deferral for 30 days to give more time to have input. Excuse me, Councilmember Kelly?
Are we going to defer the receive and file?
No, well, no, I don't think so. Right? That's my intent. Oh, is that to even the receive and file?
Bring back something for a first reading to then vote at a future meeting.
Anything new that we do will require a first reading. Will it not?
Can you give us a recommendation, Council Hayes?
Sure. So there's no council rule that requires a receive and file on an ordinance change. It's
Okay.
been my habit and practice since I took this role to make certain that when we do a code change, as opposed to just adopting an ordinance that might have some other function, but that when we're doing code changes, that we're doing a first reading and having a receive and file. Certainly, Councilman Euler's suggestion about, from a procedural standpoint, leaving this deferred now would then leave the receive and file item to be taken up.
Okay.
And not give the idea to anybody that we'd be passing the item the next time it's on the agenda.
Okay.
My suggestion would be that the motion to receive and file is in order, and then a motion to defer could immediately follow that and give direction that it won't be back before council for a month. And then it'll be on the agenda for a receive and file process, which wouldn't allow its immediate adoption unless the council decided to do that. Our receive and file process is more custom than a rule. And if the council has a will to establish a rule, I'd be happy to draft that and present it, but there isn't one on.
Okay,
that
so if I
guides us.
heard you correctly, and I don't always hear everything super good, is that we proceed with the motion to receive and file, followed by a motion to defer.
And
Did I hear that wrong?
What are the options? So if the preference from Councilman Euler is to have his motion to defer, which takes precedent, heard.
Right.
Then the outcome of that, if there's no other motions, would be that we haven't received and filed it.
Okay.
It'll just be on the agenda a month out.
I see,
And
okay,
what'll be on the agenda
get
is
it
the
now.
same, it'll appear the same as it's tonight for receive
Okay.
and file.
okay,
And that's in order. Right now, his motion to defer takes precedent right now over
Right.
the motion to receive and file. And if that's successful, then that would be the outcome.
okay.
And I'll second it. Okay?
I think it already got seconded by
Oh, all right.
Councilmember Carmona. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So let me make sure I understand what I'm voting for. So we're voting on not receiving filing, but essentially we're voting on to punt this for a month?
The motion to defer takes precedence over the motion to receive and file, so we're voting on the deferral until 30 days, for 30
Okay.
days.
And then at that time, we will bring back another draft as a receive and file?
Yes,
So I just want us to be very intentional when we do bring back something, because at the end of the day, I'm receiving phone calls just like you all, and our residents, they respect the process, but they're losing patience. And I know our staff, they're getting a lot of phone calls, and I know Nicole Morrow is tired of me calling her as well too. So we gotta get this together, you all. So I want us to get it right, and I think it's important that we engage our landlords and our staff and whatever legal parameters that we gotta convey. But this can't be getting punted into 2027, because we got people right now that are counting on us. So I just want us to come back with some intentionality, get something on the books, and if we don't get it right the first time, that's fine. Let's utilize a year to audit to see how it's going. And if we got to make some changes in a year or so, that's fine. It's not a blood oath, but we've got to add some teeth to this ordinance. We can't have any more paper tiger ordinances. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
great. Councilmember Riggenbach?
Just one more clarification, if I may,
Okay.
Madam Mayor. So Corporation Council, those suggested changes I made will not be included. This is just a deferral of the existing receive and file?
When this appears again, we'll incorporate your suggested changes and what's presented to the council. The
Thank
agenda item will say receive and file.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to defer for 30 days. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
26-213 is a communication from the City Manager and Finance Director Comptroller with a request to receive and file the month ended June 30th, 2026, unaudited financial report.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to ask our Finance Director, Kyle Craddy, to come to the podium.
All right, thank you, Mr. Manager. The report in front of you tonight is for the month ended June 30th unaudited financial reports. Really, it's not that much different than the May report I presented to you at the last meeting. Our general fund revenues are 3.3% lower than what the estimated budget was, but up 0.5% versus 2025. So we are trending above last year's rates. On the expenditure side, the expenses are up 3.2% compared to the estimated budget, and up 9% compared to the actual amounts from last year. I think just a couple key takeaways of what's driving some on the expense side is in some of our areas, let's say our IS department, other areas, we have some larger annual contracts that have come up that got paid in a different time frame than we had anticipated during the budget. There will not be additional expense during the year for it, but that's something we'll adjust for next year when we do our kind of estimates of where we believe we're going to be. On the revenue side, while yes, we are below budget, why I am not necessarily concerned about that direction is looking at the charts on page 3, 4, and 5. All of our state revenue sources on a cash basis are ahead of where we were last year at this time. So just kind of the reminder to the council, a lot of our state revenues have either a 2 or 3 month lag on them. So that's why we currently are below budget in our general fund is due to that kind of timing difference. So looking kind of out, and as we're preparing now as staff to get ready for the budget process with the council coming up in October, as of right now, I would say that we are on pace to be on budget. And with that, I'm available if council has any questions.
Okay. Questions for Director Craddy? Thank you very much. Oh, we need a motion to receive and file. Moved by Councilmember Allen, seconded by Councilmember Carmona. Cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Well, with the exception of Councilwoman Jackson.
Gotcha.
Madam Clerk?
We are at unfinished business. 26-189 is a communication from the City Manager and Corporation Council to approve a lease agreement renewal for the parking lot at Hamilton and Madison between the City of Peoria and Heartland Parking. And this item is withdrawn as it has become moot and there's no further action needed on this item.
Okay.
So moving on to 26-195 is a communication from the City Manager and Director of Community Development with a request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to deny an amendment to an existing special use ordinance number 13807 as amended in a Class C2 large-scale commercial district for a shopping center to allow the modification of an existing off-premises sign to add electronic messaging for the property located at 8103 North Knoxville Avenue. And it is my understanding that the applicant has withdrawn their application, so this item is withdrawn as well.
Okay.
No action is needed. So if there is no further unfinished business, we will be on to new business.
Okay, is there any new business? Any new business? Madam Clerk?
Then we would be on to citizens' opportunity to address the City Council. And I believe we have 3 cards.
Thank you. I have 3 cards. Jesse McGowan, Jr.
Good afternoon, Jesse McGowan Jr., 707 East Thrush, Peoria. It's ironic that we're here talking about housing tonight. That's one of the things that brought me down here. I was in housing court this morning. I'm having a feud with your community development code division. I don't want to get anybody fired. Matter of fact, Joe's my partner, but he's mad. I'm mad at him right now. They had me for 910 East Gift. I want to let y'all think of what happened to me was right or wrong. So I've been arguing with them pretty regularly. So they're trying to teach me a lesson, but somebody forgot to tell them you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So they started a fight. Now we're going to finish it. I bought a house at 910 East Gift. I had a 912 East Gift, and the property at 910 East Gift would become dilapidated. House had run down, several trees on the property. The house had to have a roof placed next door. The fence next door on the other side of that had to be replaced. There was a limb in the yard because there was 5 dead trees on that property. We couldn't get the city to do anything about it, so I saved up $10,000, bought the property, paid all the taxes, back taxes, got the trees cut down. From day one, I was in touch with the code enforcement, telling what I was doing, that after they couldn't work with me on the taxes or with getting the trees down, so I had to pay all that by myself, so that was no big deal. I knew that. But then the money wasn't available at the time to get the house torn down, and I was communicating with them with that. I was trying to find out what I was going to do with the house, with the property after the house was torn down. We knew we were going to tear the house down. But we had several arguments about some things about what I could do there, so they got angry at me, and I got angry at them, so then they decided to have Patrick Hayes summon me to the housing court. I bought that property within less than a month after I bought that property, communicating with them, paying all the money to have it done with. Instead of saying thank you, they sent me a summons to come to court to explain why that house is still there without a code violation. I just bought the damn thing. So that's the part that kind of made me angry. Instead of saying thank you for doing your job, now I get a summons to come to housing court about a house I already told you I'm tearing down. So it was done just out of spite. Because, like I say, we had a serious argument. It wasn't no disrespect, but no name was called and no cursing, but we did have a serious argument. So they're trying to teach me a lesson. And as I said before, like I told Joe a while ago, if this way we want to keep on this fight, we want to keep this going, we can take it further, but you're not going to teach an old dog new tricks. I'm going to come out fighting. Anytime you tell me what I can't do, we're going to come out fighting. So I just want to let y'all know where it's going.
Next, we have David Williams, Jr.
Good evening, Mayor Ali, members of the Peoria City Council, city staff, and members of our community. My name is David Williams, Jr., and tonight I want to bring attention to an issue that I believe affects thousands of drivers throughout our city every day. Intersection safety, and specifically the use of the flashing yellow left turn arrows. Traffic safety is not a minor issue in Peoria. As I understand, traffic-related concerns are the #1 category of complaints received by the Peoria Police Department. If traffic is consistently one of the leading concerns being brought to our police department, then we should recognize that safer streets are not only a matter of convenience, they are a matter of public safety and quality of life. My request tonight is straightforward. I'm asking the city of Peoria to study high crash intersections that utilize flashing yellow left turn arrows and determine whether additional protected left turn phases could improve public safety. There are several major intersections that I believe deserve particular consideration, including War Memorial Drive and Sheridan Road, Knoxville Avenue and Glen Avenue, and the intersection of War Memorial and Big Hollow Road and Willows Drive. Just last night, I had already prepped and given this speech, but just last night, me and my friends, now this is, I understand, in East Peoria, which of course I'm not talking in front of that municipal body at the moment, but we were coming back from Freddy's, and we were traveling along, I think it was Route 116, and we were traveling at of course, a safe speed, and a car that was preparing to turn nearly kind of collided with us head on. And I do understand with these intersections that these collisions could potentially be very fatal in many cases. So I understand that these are busy corridors where drivers may be required to judge the speed and distance of multiple lanes of approaching traffic before making a left turn. And a flashing yellow arrow tells a driver that they may proceed after yielding to oncoming traffic. In many circumstances, that system may function safely and efficiently. But at a large, heavily traveled intersection, a driver must make several judgments within seconds. They must determine the speed of approaching vehicles, identify a sufficient gap, watch multiple lanes of traffic, account for pedestrians and other roadway users, and determine whether they have enough time to complete the turn. One incorrect judgment can result in a serious, as I mentioned, a potential fatal collision. That is why I believe we should at least examine the data rather than simply assume that the traffic signal configuration is appropriate for every intersection. That being said, we also have seen a different approach used at Memorial Drive in Knoxville Avenue, where left turn movements now operate with a protected red and green left turn signals rather than relying on a flashing yellow arrow. I believe that provides us with a more important, I believe that provides us with an important opportunity. The city and its traffic professionals can examine what occurred before and after the change. Did the protected left turn operation affect the number of types of crashes, and did it reduce potentially dangerous conflicts between left turning vehicles and oncoming traffic? And could lessons from that intersection be applied elsewhere? I am also aware that the city approved roughly a $7 million improvement back in April involved in the intersection of Sterling Avenue and Forest Hill Avenue with safety and intersection improvements among the concerns being addressed. That demonstrates something important. Peoria already recognizes that roadway design and intersection configuration have a direct impact on public safety. My proposal does not require the city to spend millions of dollars at every intersection, nor am I asking tonight for every flashing yellow in Peoria to be eliminated. But that being said, I am asking for a targeted data-driven review. First, identify high crash intersections utilizing flashing yellow left turn arrows. And second, examine how many crashes at those intersections involve left turning vehicles and determine whether the permitted left turn movement may be contributing to those collisions. Third, compare those intersections with locations such as Memorial Drive and Knoxville Avenue, where protected left turn signaling is being used. And finally, where the evidence demonstrates a safety concern, determine whether converting the left turn movement to a protected red and green signal or implementing another engineering solution could reduce collisions. This is ultimately about prevention. And to kind of conclude, I respectfully ask the Peoria City Council and appropriate city staff to study these intersections, review the crash data, and determine whether the changes to flashing yellow left turn operations can make some of our busiest roadways safer. I do have 20 seconds, but I'm not going to go into too deep. But that being said, I do have a book with me as well that I'd like to share with some of the council members after the meeting is adjourned. So if you're very interested, please see me. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You may have to follow up with them just because we have an executive session immediately following this. Okay. All right, and our final speaker is Cinda York. Yes. Yeah, we'll help you. Perfect.
Okay, is this better? Okay. The idea that Phoenix has put forward just really turned light bulbs. Now, then we went to the one that you were talking about, Mr. Hayes, about, nuisance properties. My husband and I accidentally, through a VA social worker using HUD-VASH, apartments became available in 740 West Joan Court. Now, it's kind of hard to be considered as an elder with chronic or with disabilities as a nuisance. It's offensive. The offensive is that we have no good property managers. The reason being that I researched is that we have a nonprofit man, clear out in New Jersey, that owns several properties like that through the United States. And they also accumulate funds on HUD housing. We have no managers. There is no enforcement authority within the city of Peoria to make these people do the maintenance. We are in a building that does not need torn down, as residents are all fearing. It's built like a diamond. It's solid as a rock. But the maintenance that goes into it, there's nothing in that building that cannot be restored and working properly. There's an example. I went in there and I walked. I might have had medical, but I got bit. I still have the scar. I ended up in intensive care twice, in the hospital, multiple. And I thank God for the emergency department at OSF, saved my life. I've also had fire department paramedics that came there that helped me with breathing exercises so I wouldn't have to go back to the hospital. There's a lot going on in this place. We have vultures looking at us, more or less, to steal things. So sometimes we get deliveries we don't get. And if the delivery people put them in the wrong places, even if you have instructions, everything from DoorDash to Walmart, okay, to anything that you order, people steal. We have a lot of people there. Some of them probably shouldn't be there. And I know that there's been a considerable amount of time where cars have been messed with deliberately out in the parking lot. Little things here and there, but they were messed with. And there's somebody that wants to, somebody that can go there and try to get money off of people that are vulnerable, that don't want to report things to the police department for fear of losing their place in this housing. That was one factor that I saw that Mr. Hayes overlooked. No property managers. We had 3 within 4 months. One stayed, one day said she'd be back, and she didn't come back. Another one was there, 1 month? And she never came back. The one we did have, the way the structure is made with the nonprofit that Peoria County, City of Peoria has no authority over, they have no managers. They have a regional manager over some of their properties. The good manager we had, she finally couldn't take it anymore because they overweigh whatever she said needs to be done. Property, you put in a claim and say, hey, this goes into...
Thank you, Ms. York.
Okay, am I done?
Yes.
I hope I said enough, and I apologize, but I just wanted to really stress
I understand.
that all isn't what you see sometimes.
Yeah.
Mr. Hayes. Thank you.
Madam Clerk,
We have an executive session.
I would like to invite a motion to adjourn and to convene in closed session immediately following adjournment of the City Council meeting pursuant to the Open Meetings Act 5 ILCS 122C11 to discuss pending litigation or probable or imminent litigation, and pursuant to the Open Meetings Act 5 ILCS 122C21 for approval of the body of closed session minutes. Moved by Councilmember Allen, seconded by Councilmember Carmona. Please cast your ballots. Thank you for your service.